Lonely cop follows stray dog into woods, then discovers this. An entire town bursts into tears. The soft glow of streetlights casts long shadows across the quiet streets of Cedarville as Officer Alex Monroe guided his patrol car through familiar neighborhoods. At 52, Alex had been on the force for nearly 3 decades, and nights like these, calm and uneventful, had become all too common. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was just going through the motions, counting down the days until retirement. Alex's salt and pepper hair and the lines etched around his eyes spoke of years of service, both to his country as a former Marine and to his community as a police officer. But lately, those eyes had lost some of their spark. The passion that had once driven him to put on the badge every day had dimmed, replaced by a weary resignation. As he turned onto Cedar Lane, a tree-lined street on the outskirts of town, Alex's thoughts drifted to his apartment and the lonely night ahead. His wife, Sarah, had passed away 5 years ago after a long battle with cancer. Their only son, Michael, lived on the other side of the country with his own family. The long nights of patrol had become a welcome distraction from the silence at home. A movement in his peripheral vision snapped Alex back to the present. Something had darted across the road just ahead of his cruiser. Instinctively, he eased off the gas, peering into the darkness. There, illuminated by his headlights, was a dog. It was a medium-sized mutt with shaggy brown fur and alert ears. But what caught Alex's attention wasn't the dog's appearance. It was its behavior. The animal was clearly agitated, running back and forth across the road, barking frantically. Alex pulled the cruiser to the side of the road and stepped out, his hand instinctively resting on his holstered weapon. "Hey there, buddy," he called softly, approaching the dog. "What's got you all worked up?" As Alex drew closer, the dog's behavior became even more frantic. It ran a few steps toward the woods that bordered Cedar Lane, then back to Alex, barking urgently. It was almost as if it was trying to tell him something. "Boy," Alex murmured, a long dormant instinct stirring in his gut. He'd seen this kind of behavior before, years ago when he'd worked with K-9 units. This dog wasn't just scared or aggressive. It was trying to lead him somewhere. For a moment, Alex hesitated. Protocol dictated that he should call this in and wait for backup before investigating anything suspicious. But something about the dog's urgency, the desperation in its eyes, made him reconsider. If someone was in trouble, every second could count. Decision made, Alex grabbed his flashlight from the cruiser and radioed in his position an intention to investigate. "Dispatch, this is Officer Monroe. I'm on Cedar Lane, about to follow a dog into the woods. Might be nothing, but something doesn't feel right. Send backup to my location just in case." "Copy that, Officer Monroe," came the dispatcher's reply. "Be careful out there." With a deep breath, Alex turned to the dog. "All right, boy. Show me what's got you so worked up." As if understanding his words, the dog immediately took off into the woods, pausing every few yards to make sure Alex was following. The beam of Alex's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a narrow, overgrown path that wound deeper into the forest. As they moved further from the road, Alex's senses heightened. Every snapping twig, every rustle of leaves set him on edge. The dog, however, moved with purpose, its nose to the ground, leading Alex deeper into the woods than he'd ever ventured before. After what felt like an eternity, though it was probably no more than 15 minutes, Alex caught a glimmer of light through the trees. As they drew closer, he could make out the shape of a small, dilapidated cabin. A faint glow emanated from its grimy windows, and the sound of muffled voices carried on the night air. Alex's heart began to race. This cabin wasn't on any map he knew of, and it certainly wasn't a place someone would stumble upon by accident. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't good. The dog, which had been leading the way confidently until now, suddenly stopped. Its ears flattened against its head, and a low growl rumbled in its throat. Alex crouched down, placing a reassuring hand on the dog's back. "Good boy," he whispered. "You've done your job. Now it's my turn." Moving as silently as he could, Alex crept closer to the cabin. As he neared one of the windows, the voices inside became clearer. He could make out 2 distinct male voices, their tones harsh and angry. Then came a sound that made his blood run cold, a muffled sob, distinctly female. Alex's mind raced. He was alone, potentially outgunned, with no idea how many people were inside or what kind of weapons they might have. The smart move would be to retreat, wait for backup, but that sob, someone was in trouble and they needed help now. Taking a deep breath, Alex made his decision. He would do a closer reconnaissance, try to get a better idea of the situation inside. Then, if necessary, he would act. Drawing his weapon, he began to circle the cabin, looking for a better vantage point. As he rounded the corner, a loose board creaked beneath his foot. Alex froze, his heart pounding. For a moment, all was silent. Then, suddenly, the cabin door burst open. A large, rough-looking man stepped out, a pistol in his hand. "Who's there?" the man growled, his eyes scanning the darkness. "I'm warning you, I'm armed." Alex's mind raced. He was out of position, exposed. If he revealed himself now, he'd be an easy target. But before he could decide on a course of action, a blur of brown fur shot past him. The dog, which had been silent and still until now, launched itself at the armed man with a ferocious snarl. Its teeth sank into the man's arm, causing him to cry out in pain and surprise. The gun clattered to the ground as the man struggled with the savage attack. Alex didn't hesitate. In an instant, he was moving, covering the distance of the cabin in long strides. "Police," he shouted. "Drop your weapons and get on the ground." The element of surprise was on his side. The man at the door was still grappling with the dog, unable to reach for his fallen weapon. Inside the cabin, Alex could see another man, this one smaller and wiry, frozen in shock at the sudden turn of events. "I said on the ground," Alex repeated, his voice ringing with authority. The smaller man inside the cabin seemed to snap out of his daze. His hand moved towards his waistband, but Alex was faster. A warning shot rang out, the bullet embedding itself in the cabin wall just inches from the man's head. "Don't even think about it," Alex growled. "Hands where I can see them, and get down on your knees. Now!" This time, both men complied. The larger one had managed to shake off the dog, but with Alex's gun trained on him, he didn't dare make another move. As they lay face down on the ground, Alex quickly cuffed them. His Marine training kicked in as he efficiently secured the suspects. Only then did he allow himself to take in the rest of the scene. There, bound to a chair in the corner of the cabin, was a woman. She was in her early 30s, with long dark hair and terrified eyes. A gag covered her mouth, muffling her cries. "It's okay," Alex said softly, holstering his weapon and moving toward her. "You're safe now. I'm Officer Alex Monroe, Cedarville PD. I'm going to get you out of here." As he gently removed the gag and began to untie her bonds, the woman burst into tears of relief. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Oh, God, thank you. I thought no one would find me out here. Can you tell me your name?" Alex asked as he worked on the ropes. "Emily," she managed between sobs. "Emily Parker. They took me from the grocery store parking lot. I didn't think anyone would even know I was missing." Alex's jaw clenched at the thought of what this woman had been through and what might have happened if Alex hadn't followed that dog into the woods. Speaking of which, he looked around, suddenly realizing he hadn't seen the dog since it had attacked the larger kidnapper. "Here, boy," he called softly. "Where are you, buddy?" A soft whine answered him, and the shaggy brown mutt emerged from behind the cabin. It approached cautiously, its tail wagging hesitantly as it looked up at Alex with what could only be described as a mixture of pride and uncertainty. "Come here, you hero," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. The dog's tail wagged faster as it moved closer, allowing Alex to scratch behind its ears. "You did good, boy. Real good." The sound of sirens in the distance signaled the approach of backup. As Emily clung to him, still shaking with fear and relief, and the two kidnappers lay securely cuffed on the ground, Alex found himself marveling at the turn the night had taken, all because of one brave, determined dog. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The backup units arrived, securing the scene and taking statements. The two kidnappers were identified as known felons with a history of violent crimes. Emily was reunited with her frantic husband, who had indeed reported her missing earlier that evening. Through it all, the dog stayed close to Alex's side, as if sensing that his job wasn't quite done yet. As the scene began to clear, Alex found himself facing a decision. The dog wore no collar, and given its unkempt appearance, it was clearly a stray. Protocol dictated that it should be turned over to animal control. But as Alex looked down at those trusting brown eyes, he knew he couldn't do it. This dog had not only led him to a woman in desperate need of help, but it had also reawakened something in Alex that he thought he'd lost, a sense of purpose. A reminder of why he'd become a police officer in the first place. "What do you say, boy?" Alex said softly, kneeling down to the dog's level. "Feel like coming home with me? I think we both could use the company." The dog's tail wagged furiously, and it pressed its head against Alex's hand. It was all the answer he needed. As dawn broke over Cedarville, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Alex Monroe drove home with a new companion by his side. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of excitement about what the future might hold. He had a feeling that his life, and the lives of those around him, were about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Little did Alex know just how right he was. The events of that night would set in motion a chain of events that would not only transform his life, but also have a profound impact on the entire community of Cedarville. In the days that followed, Alex's rescue of Emily Parker became the talk of the town. The local newspaper ran a front-page story detailing the dramatic events, complete with a photo of Alex and his new canine companion, whom he had decided to name Hero. The attention was uncomfortable for Alex, who had always preferred to work quietly behind the scenes. But he couldn't deny the positive impact the story was having. People stopped him on the street to shake his hand, thanking him for his service. Young children looked at him with awe, asking to pet Hero, and declaring their intentions to become police officers when they grew up. More importantly, Alex noticed a shift in the way his fellow officers treated him. The weariness and resignation that had colored his recent years on the force had been replaced by a renewed sense of purpose, and it was infectious. Younger officers sought his advice more frequently, eager to learn from his experience. Even the chief, a typically stern man, had pulled Alex aside to commend him on his instincts and bravery. But the most significant change was in Alex himself. With Hero by his side, the loneliness that had plagued him since Sarah's death began to recede. He found himself looking forward to coming home after his shifts, knowing that an enthusiastic welcome awaited him. Long walks in the park with Hero became a daily ritual, giving Alex a chance to clear his head and reconnect with his community in a way he hadn't in years. As the weeks passed, Alex and Hero settled into a comfortable routine. The dog proved to be intelligent and eager to please, quickly learning basic commands and even some more advanced tricks. Alex found himself wondering about Hero's background. Clearly, the dog had some training, but how had it ended up as a stray? His curiosity led him to reach out to local animal shelters and rescue organizations, hoping to find some information about Hero's past. While his search didn't turn up any leads on Hero's origins, it did open Alex's eyes to the plight of stray and abandoned animals in Cedarville. One Saturday afternoon, about a month after the rescue, Alex decided to visit the local animal shelter. He had been thinking about volunteering some of his free time, and he thought Hero might enjoy socializing with other dogs. As they walked into the shelter, Alex was struck by the cacophony of barks and meows. The place was clearly overcrowded, with cages lining every available wall space. A harried-looking woman in her 40s approached them, her face breaking into a tired smile as she recognized Alex. "Officer Monroe," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Linda Hawkins, the shelter manager. We've heard so much about you and Hero. What brings you in today?" Alex shook her hand, feeling a twinge of guilt at the obvious exhaustion in Linda's eyes. "Just thought we'd stop by, see if you could use any help," he said, "and maybe let Hero socialize a bit, if that's allowed." Linda's face lit up. "Oh, we could absolutely use the help," she said enthusiastically. "And having Hero here might be great for some of our more nervous dogs. Would you like a tour?" As Linda led them to the shelter, explaining their operations and challenges, Alex felt a growing sense of unease. The shelter was doing the best it could with limited resources, but it was clear they were overwhelmed. Many of the animals looked scared and under-socialized, their chances of adoption growing slimmer by the day. We do what we can, Linda said, her voice tinged with frustration. But there's only so much space and so many resources. We're constantly having to make hard decisions about which animals we can take in and which ones. She trailed off, but Alex understood the implication. As they walked, Hero trotted alongside them, his tail wagging as he greeted the other dogs. Alex noticed how the anxious barking in the kennels they passed would often quiet as Hero approached the other dogs, seeming to take comfort in his calm presence. They stopped in front of a kennel, housing a small, trembling chihuahua. "This is Petunia," Linda explained. "She was rescued from a hoarding situation. She's sweet as can be, but she's so scared of everything that potential adopters pass her by. We've been trying to socialize her, but we just don't have the manpower to give her the one-on-one attention she needs." As if sensing the topic of conversation, Hero sat down in front of Petunia's kennel, his tail sweeping gently across the floor. To Alex's amazement, the tiny dog cautiously approached the front of her cage, her nose twitching as she sniffed at Hero. "Well, would you look at that?" Linda breathed. That's the closest she's come to front of her kennel since she arrived. An idea began to form in Alex's mind. "Linda," he said slowly, "what would you think about starting a program where volunteers bring in well-socialized dogs to interact with the shelter animals? It could help calm the nervous ones, maybe make them more adoptable." Linda's eyes widened. That could work," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "We'd need to screen the volunteer dogs carefully, of course, but if it helped even a fraction of our harder-to-place animals, Officer Monroe, that's a brilliant idea." As they continued the tour, Alex and Linda bounced ideas back and forth. By the time they reached Linda's office, the kernel of an idea had blossomed into a full-fledged plan. "Okay," Linda said, her eyes shining with excitement as she sat behind her cluttered desk. "Let's lay this out. We'll call it the Canine Comfort Corps. Volunteers bring their well-socialized dogs to the shelter on a regular basis to interact with our animals. It could help calm the anxious ones, provide mental stimulation for the others, and maybe even help us identify behavioral issues we haven't noticed." Alex nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "And it's not just about the animals," he added. "Think about the community engagement. People who might not be able to adopt could still contribute. It could be great for seniors or people with disabilities who benefit from animal interaction but can't have pets of their own." Linda was already scribbling notes. "We could partner with local businesses for sponsorships, maybe even get the police department involved. Officer Monroe, I think you might have just revolutionized our shelter operations," Linda said. As Alex left the shelter that afternoon, Hero trotting happily by his side, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't just about police work anymore. He had stumbled upon a way to make a real difference in his community, one that honored Sarah's memory and utilized the unexpected gift that Hero had brought into his life. Over the next few weeks, Alex threw himself into bringing the Canine Comfort Corps to life. He reached out to his contacts at the police department, securing their support for the program. The chief, seeing an opportunity for positive community engagement, even offered to make Alex the official liaison between the department and the shelter. Word of the program spread quickly through Cedarville. Alex was surprised by the enthusiasm with which people embraced the idea. Volunteers began to sign up in droves, eager to contribute to the welfare of the shelter animals. Local businesses stepped forward with donations and sponsorships, providing everything from pet supplies to advertising support. The first official day of the Canine Comfort Corps arrived on a sunny Saturday in early autumn. Alex arrived at the shelter early, Hero by his side, to help Linda prepare. As volunteers began to arrive with their dogs, Alex felt a swell of pride. There were people from all walks of life, retirees with their well-behaved companions, families with excited children and patient family pets, even a few of his fellow officers who had embraced the community outreach aspect of the program. As the day progressed, the impact of the program became clear. Anxious dogs, who had previously cowered at the backs of their kennels, began to show interest in their visitors. Cats that had been aloof and unapproachable started to seek interaction. The shelter, which had so often been a place of sadness and stress, was filled with happy barks, content purrs, and human laughter. One interaction in particular stood out to Alex. He watched as an elderly woman named Margaret, accompanied by her gentle golden retriever, sat patiently outside the kennel of a scarred pit bull named Bruno. Bruno had been at the shelter for months, his history of dog fighting making him a challenging adoption prospect. "You know," Margaret said to Alex as she was leaving, tears in her eyes, "I lost my husband last year. I thought I'd never find a purpose again. But this feels like what I was meant to do. Thank you for giving me that gift." Alex swallowed hard, thinking of his own journey through grief and how Hero had brought him back to life. "No, Margaret," he said softly. "Thank you for reminding us all of the healing power of compassion." As the weeks turned into months, the Canine Comfort Corps became an integral part of the shelter's operations. Adoption rates began to climb as formerly unadoptable animals blossomed under the attention of the volunteers. The shelter's social media pages, once a desperate plea for adopters, became a celebration of success stories and heartwarming interactions. But the impact extended far beyond the shelter walls. Alex began to notice a shift in the community's attitude towards animals. Reports of strays and abandonments decreased as people became more aware of the responsibilities of pet ownership. The police department saw a reduction in animal-related calls as the community became more engaged in looking out for its furry residents. One crisp morning in late November, Alex received a call from the chief asking him to come to the station early. Concerned that something might be wrong, Alex hurried in, Hero always by his side. As he entered the chief's office, he was surprised to see not just the chief, but also Linda from the shelter and the mayor of Cedarville. All three wore expressions that were hard to read. "Alex," the chief began, his voice uncharacteristically gentle, "we've asked you here because we have a proposition for you." The mayor stepped forward, a warm smile on her face. "Officer Monroe, the success of the Canine Comfort Corps has not gone unnoticed. It's made a remarkable difference in our community, far beyond what any of us could have anticipated. We've been discussing how to build on that success, and we think we've come up with something that might interest you." Linda picked up the thread. "We want to create a new position, a full-time liaison between the police department, the shelter, and the community. Someone to oversee the Canine Comfort Corps, expand our animal welfare programs, and handle animal-related issues in the city. In short, Alex, we want you to become Cedarville's first animal welfare officer." Alex was stunned. He looked down at Hero, who gazed back at him with those trusting brown eyes, then back at the expectant faces of the chief, the mayor, and Linda. I don't know what to say," he managed finally. "It's an incredible opportunity, but I've been a patrol officer for so long. I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like this." The chief chuckled. "Alex, you've been qualifying yourself for this position every day since you brought that dog home. Your compassion, your dedication, your ability to connect with both animals and people, that's what this job needs. The rest you can learn." As Alex considered the offer, he felt a familiar nudge against his leg. Hero was looking up at him, tail wagging, as if to say, "Come on, partner, this is what we're meant to do." In that moment, Alex saw the path ahead of him with perfect clarity. From that fateful night in the woods to this moment, every step had been leading him here. This was how he could honor Sarah's memory, how he could make a lasting difference in the community, how he could repay the gift the Hero had given him by believing in him when he'd lost belief in himself. "Okay," Alex said, a smile spreading across his face. "I'll do it. Let's make Cedarville the most animal-friendly city in the state." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity as Alex transitioned into his new role. There was so much to learn: animal behavior, local and state laws regarding animal welfare, grant writing for funding new programs. But Alex threw himself into work with enthusiasm he hadn't felt in years. He expanded the Canine Comfort Corps, partnering with local schools to create education programs about responsible pet ownership. He worked with the city council to revise outdated animal control ordinances, focusing on rehabilitation and education rather than punishment. He even started a program to train local first responders in animal rescue techniques. But perhaps his proudest achievement was the creation of the Cedarville Animal Welfare Center. Using his connections in the community and his newfound grant writing skills, Alex secured funding to build a state-of-the-art facility that combined the functions of shelter, a veterinary clinic for low-income pet owners, and an education center. The day of the center's grand opening dawned bright, and clear as Alex stood at the podium, Hero sitting proudly by his side. He looked out over the crowd of familiar faces. There was Emily Parker, the woman he'd rescued that night in the woods, now a dedicated volunteer. Margaret was there with her golden retriever, and next to her sat Bruno, the once unapproachable pit bull who was now her constant companion. Linda beamed from the front row, her tireless work finally receiving the recognition it deserved. As Alex began his speech, he felt a lump form in his throat. A little over a year ago, he began, I was a man who had lost his way. I was going through the motions, counting down the days until retirement. Then, on a quiet night that seemed like any other, a stray dog changed everything. He recounted the story of that night, of the rescue and the events that followed. That dog, who became my partner, Hero, didn't just lead me to a woman in need. He led me back to myself. He reminded me of why I became a police officer in the first place. To protect, to serve, to make a difference. Alex's voice grew stronger as he continued. But the real hero of this story isn't me, and it isn't even Hero. It's all of you. It's this community that came together, that saw the value in treating our animal companions with kindness and respect. It's the volunteers who give their time and love to animals in need. It's the city officials who had the vision to create this position and this center. He paused, looking down at Hero, who gazed back at him with unwavering trust. In the end, this center is about more than just animal welfare. It's about recognizing the profound connections that can form between humans and animals. It's about the healing power of compassion and the extraordinary things that can happen when we open our hearts to unexpected friendships. As applause erupted from the crowd, Alex felt a sense of peace settle over him. He thought of Sarah, of how proud she would be of what he had accomplished. He thought of all the animals whose lives would be changed because of this center, and all the people who would find purpose and healing through their work here. But mostly, he thought of a dark night in the woods and a brave dog who believed in him when he'd stopped believing in himself. As the ribbon was cut and the doors of Cedarville Animal Welfare Center opened for the first time, Alex knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for him, for Hero, and for the entire community of Cedarville. In the years that followed, the Cedarville Animal Welfare Center became a model for communities across the country. Alex found himself traveling to conferences, sharing the story of how one stray dog had inspired a movement that transformed an entire city. But no matter how busy he became, Alex never forgot the importance of the small moments. Every day, he made time to walk through the center, greeting the animals and volunteers. He knew every dog and cat by name, celebrated every adoption, and mourned every loss. Hero, now showing signs of age with gray around his muzzle, remained by Alex's side through it all. The dog who had once been a stray was now a local celebrity, beloved by everyone who visited the center. Children would squeal with delight when they saw him, rushing to pet the Hero dog they'd heard so much about. On Hero's estimated 10th birthday, since his exact age was unknown, Alex organized a special celebration at the center. It was a chance to honor not just Hero, but all the animals and volunteers who had made the center's work possible. As Alex watched Hero greet his many admirers, accepting pets and treats with his usual gentle dignity, he felt a familiar presence beside him. He turned to see Emily Parker, the woman he'd rescued all those years ago, smiling up at him. "You know," Emily said softly, "I never properly thanked you, not just for saving me that night, but for everything you've done since. This center, it's given me a purpose I never knew I needed." "I think a lot of us feel that way." Alex nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I know exactly what you mean. Hero didn't just save you that night. In a way, he saved all of us." As the party wound down and the last of the guests left, Alex found himself alone in the center with Hero. The old dog looked up at him, his brown eyes still full of the trust and love that had changed Alex's life all those years ago. "Well, old friend," Alex said, kneeling down to scratch behind Hero's ears, "will you say we head home? I think we both earned a quiet night by the fire." Hero's tail wagged in agreement, and together, man and dog walked out into the cool evening air. As they made their way home, Alex couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance encounter on a dark night to the creation of a community that celebrated the bond between humans and animals, it had been an extraordinary ride. And as he looked down at the loyal companion by his side, Alex knew that the greatest adventure of all had been opening his heart to the unexpected friendship that had changed everything. In saving Hero, he had saved himself, and in the process, he had helped create a legacy of compassion that would endure for years to come. The story of Officer Alex Monroe and his faithful companion Hero became legendary in Cedarville and beyond. It served as a powerful reminder of the transformative power of compassion, the unexpected ways in which lives can intertwine, and the profound impact that one act of kindness can have on an entire community. In Hero's twilight years, Alex made sure that every day was filled with love and comfort. When the time finally came to say goodbye, it was with a heart full of gratitude for the incredible journey they had shared. And though Hero was gone, his spirit lived on in every life touched by the Cedarville Animal Welfare Center, in every animal saved, and in every human heart open to the power of unconditional love. Alex continued his work at the center well into his 70s, his passion for animal welfare undimmed by the passing years. And on quiet nights, when he walked the halls of the center after hours, he could almost swear he heard the soft patting of paws beside him, a gentle reminder of the loyal friend who had changed his life and the lives of so many others. The legacy of Alex and Hero served as a beacon of hope and a testament to the extraordinary bonds that can form between humans and animals. It was a story of second chances, of lives redeemed, and of a community transformed by the simple act of opening their hearts to the animals among them. And in Cedarville, it would be remembered for generations to come as the night a stray dog led a lonely police officer not just to a rescue, but to a new purpose that would change countless lives for the better.